Okay, we'll be recording like we've had in past months. Holly, do we want to go over the notes first?
Unless there's, obviously I do my best to kind of capture what was said. I know I miss things.
Okay.
So anybody can certainly fill in anything that's missed or anything they want to add.
Okay.
I think so. Some of the outcomes that, just kind of thinking like our agenda for today. I know maybe we wanted to, well, like one of the questions I had, we were talking about a city of Chicago representative. And I started an inquiry for that, so we can. I have a couple follow-up questions. We were also thinking about, some grant opportunities as we're looking for to move forward with developing a watershed-based plan. But that was it. Richard, who made a comment about, I think he saw the link there. I think who had brought that up? Tessa from Friends of the Chicago pulled up a watershed area like the Huck. We were talking about these Huck 12 watersheds,
Yeah.
and the Huck 12 is bigger than the area that we would focus on. So then Richard's like, well, we do need to kind of define the area that we'd want to, where our focus would be for a plan. And maybe that's a first step, obviously, because actually Illinois EPA wants to know what that area is, as well as Indiana DEM when you're going for grants. What is the area that you're planning work done within? So those are kind of, I had, the watershed area as it relates to, pursuing grants or developing a plan, and then the city of Chicago representative discussion.
Oh.
Anybody else, Phil's? Hi, Phil.
Hi, Phil.
How you doing,
We
Phil?
were just discussing kind of maybe some of the topics we wanted to touch on today. My ideas were, from our last meeting, talking about a city of Chicago representatives, some grants to pursue watershed-based planning, and then that kind of leads to the area of our planning area, because it's not the full Huck 12 as you see in like the U.S. Geological Survey maps, or that you can like pull up on How's My Waterway. When you Google Wolf Lake, Chicago, it shows more of the entire lakefront, including Lake Calumet and further to the east along the Indiana shore as well. So those are my three areas that I have in mind.
So I had a question on this size, because Richard Lanyon, for example, mentioned that we should do that first. And I just wondering, because I always considered it being limited pretty much to the public lands, and but then others suggested having it be a larger space. And so how do we determine that?
I guess the area of influence is all the land area that may contribute to Wolf Lake's water quality.
Okay.
If you look, I was looking back, and well, so that that includes then some non-public lands. Watershed-based plans typically include, the area that drains to that water body of interest.
Okay.
So that, would be my vote
Okay.
to include that larger area.
And
Now I
so,
went, go ahead, Valerie or Marianne.
so is that defined on a map currently? I'm not.
That's the challenge because it's so flat in this area, right?
Mhm,
And
mhm.
so, usually a watershed is defined by topography. Those ridges, the high points can help you easily tell, oh, water falls on this side of the ridge, it goes this way, or if it falls on the other side, it goes that way. It's so flat there. And so and then there's probably this water in between. It goes out to Lake Michigan, comes back from Lake Michigan, and back and forth to Powderhorn Lake too. Depending on water levels and precipitation and groundwater levels and things like this. So I was actually looking at the Illinois State Water Survey, what's called a phase 1 diagnostic feasibility study. It was old Clean Lakes. It's part of the Clean Water Act funding. What year was that? Years ago. And in there, they basically, someone from Indiana, if I could, can I share my screen? Let's see if I can do that and pull that up and show folks. Can people see the picture? So let me just go up here first on page 10. So first, you know what? First, I'm going to go to the front page. So that was this Wolf Lake study by the Illinois State Waters. And look, it was prepared for the city of Hammond, Illinois EPA, and Indiana Department of Environmental Management back in 1996.
Whoa.
So, and then page 10 here. So many don't get dizzy. There we go. Oops. Definition of the Wolf Lake drainage area is a tenuous process at best.
Look at that.
So the true water divide couldn't be accurately defined because again, our topography, it's very flat. And who was this? Previous studies, so they noted this Indiana Department of Natural Resources memorandum from 1980 have declared the natural drainage basin for Wolf Lake to be undefinable. So we can define it. So we'll do the best our can. I mean, we just want to, I'd say, define it.
Doesn't that sound like a cop-out?
Doesn't it? So here was what the State Water Survey used for their, again, they were focusing on the lake water quality and the different, biological and chemical and physical aspects. So mostly, just pretty much immediately around Wolf Lake. And then, Powderhorn, had some connection. Now that has changed a little bit, obviously, with our recent work, kind of reconnection with Powderhorn and Wolf Lake. But my argument might be, I'm going to stop sharing this one and then share a different, if I could find what I want to share. So I have too many windows open. Isn't that typical? Let's see if I go here. Oh, that's Oive. Nope, that's not going to do it. Can't see what I want to see here. All right, how's my waterway? So here's this, is that showing up now? How's my waterway website, which is, so here's that entire Huck 12, this little light bluish with the dash line around it. I'll zoom in. So here's Lake Calumet, Wolf Lake, where the pointer is. That was my search term, Wolf Lake, Chicago, Illinois. So I would, again, you can define, we could, it's going to be somewhere in between. Like I'd say there's a line. Can you see my cursor going back and forth somewhere in here? And then somewhere between what drains to this drainage area and to the lake. So we would include, the Lake Michigan shoreline somewhere in here. something like this.
Hmm.
And this would be defined by, you'd have to look at, I imagine there's a storm sewer network. There's probably been more studies on water flow through the open channel system.
Hmm.
So is it, Richard had mentioned, getting, was it the Indiana, was it USGS that he mentioned? I'll stop sharing.
Um,
Yeah. So, is it can we, does it make sense to pursue that first? What would it take to have someone, again, it probably takes some money. Even USGS would need, a contract of some sort to do an investigation, to do a better definition of a drainage, a reasonable drainage area around Wolf Lake and Powder.
okay.
It would seem that we would need to define what we're working with, even if it's arbitrary.
Well, hopefully we can reduce the arbitrariness to the best degree possible.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, so to agree on or to determine that it would be a portion of, it was HUC 12, you said?
Right, the hydrologic unit code.
Okay.
12.
12. The HUC 12 area. And to do that, we would need to study the drainage systems in place, man-made mostly, to determine what really drains into Wolf Lake, to determine the size of what we're dealing with. And that would include the city of Chicago sewer systems. And just, how about just water, the way it moves underground? I mean,
that as well.
Yeah, because when you figure Eggers had 3 marshes that drained into Wolf Lake, and now one of them is formally connected to the city of Chicago drainage system, but there's still water even coming under the slag fields probably. But has anybody studied, not even a study just here, but a study anywhere as to the way water moves through sand and slag? I don't know, maybe that's not really on topic, but.
Well, I mean, maybe, yeah, whether it's either the state geological surveys, Illinois has a geological survey. I don't know if the state of Indiana has their own state geological survey besides our US geological survey. There may be some studies.
Mm-hmm. And the State Geological Survey has been out to Eggers. They actually drilled down 100 feet to see, they wanted to reach bedrock. And I think they reached it at 90 some feet. They didn't have to go all the way to 100 feet. But I don't know if there's other, and we're supposed to get results in terms of what they found in those.
Oh, so this is recent or ongoing?
Recent.
Recent.
Yeah, within the last year, I think, maybe even this past winter, I'm not positive. But they promised, they asked for permission, they got permission from the Forest Preserve District to do it. I told all my volunteers, so they were all kind of standing around while it was being done. It was very exciting, actually. The Geological Survey has promised a report to the Forest Preserves.
Now, this is the state, Illinois state or US
Yes,
Geological?
I believe it is the state. In fact, well,
Illinois.
I could check. I'm almost positive it's Illinois. So, I should make myself some notes here.
And is that the same kind of thing that's happening then out at Shroud also then? Because I mean, they're doing lots of studies about, they're drilling down deep and getting the US EPA. So does that factor in any of it?
Yeah, I think that the water system is understanding groundwater around Indian Creek has been kind of a mystery for years. No one, in fact, that was the reason we stopped talking about a watershed plan because of the lack of knowledge of where the water, what the water was doing in that area. And one of the hopes of what was going on today is that we're finding that out.
Right.
Out how where the water is moving. And because I don't think none of the over the past 20 years, 30 years, no one really knew where. And that was always a big question in studies that the fish biologists would do in Indiana, they would do it every 5 years. And at the end of the study, there was always a question mark of what was going on at Indian Creek, because that was a big question mark over.
And
I
in-
have,
Indian
Oh.
Creek is within the city of Chicago.
yes.
Yes.
So I do have the name of a person, because I just emailed him, Philip Gurley, at the EPA just to get an update of what was happening out at Shroud for the Hagwish Times for the paper, and he sent my information to a person, another person. So she was supposed to be responding. I don't know if that's the person. I mean, we could try messaging them and just say, have there been any updates about, if any, just regarding what we're doing in the watershed? I could, go ahead.
Are the Superfund sites, there are Superfund sites close to Wolf Lake, right? Is this,
The Shroud is a Superfund site.
do they, so wouldn't the EPA as a result then monitor close by to see which chemicals are leaking out of it and how much have leaked out, or, whatever?
Right. That is that's what they're testing on the Shroud South site now, since past October.
I see.
They started last October,
Okay.
doing that, so.
It'd be one of those unhappy drainage situations that could tell us what drains where, I guess.
But yeah, that's certainly, a data source.
Yeah. Okay. What about this new site? Is that within the Huck 12 area we think, or piece of the Huck 12 area we think we want? This latest one? Michael, do you remember the name? I need to go back.
Acme Steel.
Oh, Acme Steel. And that was at Torrance and that was at Torrance and 112th, I think they said.
Yeah, around 112 to 116, I think.
Okay. So is that part of our drainage area?
Well, that's my question. I mean, that's what it's very close if it isn't part of it. And I mean, I was just looking on the map, on that map, and even the drainage systems in Indiana, the western flow of that comes almost up to Wolf Lake. I know Dave Daverton considers that part of the watershed. But but that's something that we have to figure out.
So do you think it's part of the Wolf Lake watershed?
I think so. The original purpose for it was to connect with Wolf Lake.
Oh.
And I'm glad that it didn't because it has a lot more environmental problems right now. They have been working on it. So, but that was the original purpose of it, and so that's a big question. that we need, to have answered as well. And that is,
I mean, oftentimes during a watershed-based planning process, you can, again, when you're thinking about, out in the middle of Indiana or Illinois, you have the topography that can help, easily define it, but you can modify it a little during your study based on, say, storm sewers, other drainage patterns that may have changed. But in this area, so just what I'm thinking of, we probably, again, it's probably a best step to do that kind of study first before then embarking on a fuller, the entire 9-element plan, because you have to have that area defined, and knowing the area defined helps then, how much is it going to cost then to develop the plan? Because part of that's dependent on the land area, how many stakeholders you might be working with, yada, yada. So I'm just kind of stepping back. All of this, part of the a scope of work would be to probably investigate all the investigations, that have already been done. Like other than us trying to dig them all up, other than having an idea of them.
Who does that?
Well, developing a scope of work.
Well, who does the digging? I mean, how would?
Well, we want to hire the U.S. Geological Survey, and we say USGS, this is what we know. They may know more. This is what we know. Then you add, what kind of proposal, can you give us a scope of work and cost proposal for developing a
and we could
more
go
reasonable drainage area.
Okay, and we could also go to the Illinois Geological Survey, except that they wouldn't know Indiana. I mean, their responsibility stops at the border.
Right. The interesting thing, though, the State Water Survey did do this Wolf Lake, lake plan, even though it was on both sides. But whether it could be a possibility. It could be a possibility,
Right.
or the two state geological surveys working together, possibly.
Okay, and it was the Illinois State Geological Survey.
That was the Illinois State Water Survey that
I'm sorry, yeah,
that did the lake study.
Okay.
Back in '96.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it was started in '92, and then it was completed in '96.
Mm-hmm.
It was '95, but Indiana did their version of it, and then Illinois did both. They sent it to George Lake as well. So, but they didn't really do a complete plan. I mean, they just did Wolf Lake and George Lake.
Okay, what about the city of Chicago? Does it know how water drains within the city limits? Do they know?
Doubt it.
Okay. How about the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District? Do they know how water drains within its area of responsibility? I mean,
Should.
They should. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good one too.
Richard Lanyon, who couldn't make this meeting, but he said that that's the first thing that we have to do.
Mm-hmm.
And he would be maybe a good person to go back to, and try to get him more involved. He's written what 5 or 6 books on the waterways in Chicago. So he would be a very good resource. And I wish he could could have attended. He signed up for today's meeting, but then he said he couldn't make the meeting.
So, so I'm thinking about it, and when they did the Illinois Powderhorn connection to Wolf Lake, don't you think some of this might have been done already?
No,
No,
I would have heard about it, I think.
okay.
And yeah, I mean, maybe it's out there, but I haven't come across it.
I mean, they know that they looked at the topography between the two in detail to figure out where water would flow. So they know, I mean,
Yeah.
they did that. They didn't do an in-depth analysis, but they didn't have to do an in-depth analysis. The other thing is that you can come up with an answer, and in a couple of years, you could have a different answer. Because Lake Michigan goes up and down, and that may drive some of this as well. And of course, you can have short-term changes with heavy rainfalls. I mean, you can't even drive down there down the interstate when the interstate's underwater. And when that's underwater, then everything's the same watershed. And this is none of this is new. There's papers from the 1800s that say the water level in Lake Calumet depends on wind direction. If it's blowing one way, the lake goes out, the river goes into the lake. Then if you get northerly winds, Lake Michigan flows up into the Calumet River because it's all so flat. Which is why when Holly mentioned that earlier group gave up, that's part of the reason why they gave up. I mean, and so we need to be smart, not beat our heads against the wall here because
Right.
there is no answer. We're going to have to pick something.
Yeah.
And when they did the Huck 12, I understand basically that's a Calumet River thing. So it's Lake Calumet, Wolf Lake, combining those all in. I don't understand why the Burnham ditch was in there. That does not make sense to me. I would have cut it off before then, but they probably had a size limit. So, I mean, our options are we focus on Wolf Lake, which is going to include Powderhorn, obviously. Then you got to figure out Lake George. And then where do you draw the line to the east? And then to the west, it gets tricky. But it's going to get close to Lake or the Calumet River. Unless you want to do Lake Calumet at the same time, but then that's more players and a bigger thing. Far more
Yeah,
complicated.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Sorry,
That-
Maya, what do you think?
That was brought up at the last meeting.
If-
And no,
I mean,
um,
you could, but
Yeah, the complexity is exponential. It's a
Yeah.
little, it doubles in size, but it gets like 10 times harder. So those are our choices. I mean, basically, probably the smartest thing is to pick the mouth of Indian Creek. What goes through there? Draw a line out from there, somewhere between the Calumet River that meets out in Lake Michigan, include the Lake Michigan shoreline, sort of. And then if you want to include Lake George, then you got to pick someplace east of there that makes sense. And it's going to rely on sewers with a lot of these,
yeah,
and then just figure it out from there. I wouldn't include the Little Cal, Grand Cal. Those are obviously borders. But yeah, no, that's the first question. And we've been going back and forth about this for years because it is a hard question.
yeah.
And earlier Marianne was talking about the pores. That sounds like soil profiles to me, what they were doing as opposed to water, which of course it's all related because if you have solid bedrock, water is probably not going through it at the same rate as sand. So it's all related, but I don't think they were looking at water per se, but I could be wrong. I wasn't
No,
there. I
I'm,
didn't talk
I'm
to them.
sure you're right, Phil. It's just that, well, if they were doing that, what else have they done in the area? I mean,
Yeah, and I think the stuff at the Stroud property was not going down to 90 feet as I understand it. They were doing 10, 20, 30 max.
Yeah.
And I was under the impression water was running into Indian Creek because the last update, I want to say that they were saying some of the contaminants were flowing in that direction, at least along the surface. But then again, there's those ditches along the roads and along the property that are facilitating some of that. But it's going to be very hodgepodge in that property too if they dump slag because the water will go through slag, but not the same rate as other materials. I also remember they had trouble drilling holes because of the slag. It was so hard. So
yeah, you can't dig in this like Can you? I don't think you can.
Not
Yeah,
easily.
it was my understanding they were bringing out some really heavy duty equipment to do that out there. I mean, I know they had to do the same thing when they were testing Babe Ruth Field, when they thought it was contaminated with things. So they had to bring out some heavy duty equipment to drill through there down deep at Babe Ruth. So they have at Shroud, they have since October, they have had things on the property consistently. So, you know, trucks and security and you know, whatever they're doing. So I'm hoping to get an update. Like I said, I did email, I'm asking for an update, so I can email again and say, I'm also on this, and is there a connection? So if, or Mike, I can pass it along to you if you want to send them an email separately with the names I have.
They're also having a super fun one-on-one engagement June 18th. I don't know all the details
Yes.
of where yet.
Yes.
That's,
So
that's the Acme site?
the Shroud site, I think.
Oh, the Shrouds.
Oh, I haven't, I see, and I
Oh,
haven't.
actually,
I
I'm not
haven't
sure.
heard that.
Don't quote me.
Yeah, I think it's the Acme site. Philip
Yeah.
Gurley sent a notice about that. I remember the date, June 18th.
That
Yeah.
Philip Gurley, is it Philip Gurley? Because that's the guy who is,
Yeah.
I have from that's
Yeah.
the guy I have too. So, but yeah.
And
Where
then
is,
there's an Illinois group doing something at the Shroud site on the 8th, and the EPA will be there too, but they're doing a tour and a walk around tour Indian Creek just to do some visioning around what's possible once they clean the site,
Yeah.
making it more accessible.
Yeah, Philip sent the workshop on the Superfund in your community, Acme Steel Coke Plant Superfund site. And the meeting is on the June 18th, starting at 5 p.m. through 8 p.m.
And that's at Washington Elementary School.
Yeah, yeah.
where is the Acme site? Remind me, on Torrance, you said?
I
Yeah,
think,
on
yeah.
Torrance and about 12.
Oh, so
Well-
kind of connected to Big Marsh then, like on the other side of Big Marsh?
It's it's east of Big Marsh.
East of Big Marsh. Got it. That's why. Okay.
Does somebody have is there a link you can put in the chat or just forward an email?
You want to forward the email I sent to you, Michael?
Oh, yeah, I
How
can.
about that?
Okay, I can.
They're looking for people to attend.
Okay, I do that at the end of the meeting, or do you want me to do it now?
Oh, whenever.
I'll do it at the end of the meeting. I'll just send it to everyone.
Yeah, I'd be curious about the June 8th that you were talking about, the walking tour. So if you can send that too, that would be great.
Sorry, what walking tour is that?
Of the Shroud site?
Yeah.
I think.
Yes,
Now-
I'll find the information for that and send it.
Okay. Yeah, those of us who live here know this, but those who, it's important to get it out to everybody.
So Phil, all the information that is available that we're gonna get, this is bad. Okay. Do we just decide based on what has already been done? And we decide what the area of drainage should be based on studies? Is there anybody else we should contact? Or do we decide and then ask for confirmation or verification from some agency or some individual? What's the best way of?
I mean, Holly's done this sort of thing before, so I would suggest that we have an idea of what we're looking for first for guidelines,
Okay,
and then see what is available out there with reports and whatever else through the water survey and whatever. And then if it isn't defined, maybe we're gonna have to find someone to try to refine that. That's how I would proceed with this. I think it's good to have an idea of what we're doing first. And I think after this meeting, everybody has a much better idea of what the situation is.
Now, I know that Holly was showing us the Illinois report a few minutes ago, the diagnostic feasibility study from 1996. And Michael, you mentioned a study that the state of Indiana had done. I'm not sure quite when.
Oh, it was very similar to what Illinois had done, but it's smaller. I have both studies. One's
I
about
was,
250 pages,
yeah,
and the other one is about half that size.
I was wondering if it would be possible for the people in our group to see both of these, not that we're going to study them line by line, but just to get a sense of what is already there.
Well, I think they're all online. By
Are
this
they on the Ollie website?
they're not on my website.
Okay.
I just have the physical studies. But I'm sure we can figure out where they are online. They should all be online by now.
I mean,
just-
I can send the WS study. It's only 5 megabyte, so not too big. I think it's a scan of the original pre-computer fancy computer stuff.
Right.
You know, nothing fancy.
Sure.
I can certainly send that.
So we have to take what's been done already into account. And of course, we also have to take into account Phil's point that you're never going to get 100% perfect forever and ever boundaries drawn. But then is our thinking that with all of that said and reviewed, that there is a value in having perhaps the US Geological Survey come in, especially now that there is this channel linking Powderhorn with Wolf Lake. So it's time to get something official from the federal government about the boundaries.
And
Is
not
that
necessarily
reasonable?
official, but yeah.
Yeah.
But certainly maybe more reasonable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All along, I've been walking around thinking the watershed was Calumet River to the west, Calumet Boulevard to the east. Is it? What's it? Yeah, Calumet
Lake Michigan to the north?
Lake Michigan to the north, and you know, and that's kind of, you know, and because you kind of look around and look at the high grounds and where are the high grounds, and no, and that because nothing, nobody's done it before because it's so difficult.
Yeah.
The high grounds are all man-made, except for maybe the Wolf Lake Overlook.
Okay, that's funny. So I think that's right. I think Phil is right. We start out with something, but what I'm going to do is send an email to my friend Richard Lanyon, and with all the work he's done, I mean he's done the water system in the, you know, in Chicago and to the south. He,
Is that his profession?
yeah, he was head of that. What's the department?
MWRD.
In WRD for years, and
Wow.
I used to come around and, you know, 20 years ago and and give talks on. So, so he knows an awful lot. And,
Mm-hmm.
and my God, I mean, he's written what, 5 books on,
Okay.
and he just took Chicago and drove it and divided into 5 or 6 different areas and wrote on them. So he is um, uh,
An important
Well,
point is if he doesn't know the answer, he knows where to find the answer
Mm.
to these
Yeah.
things.
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
If
And
it's
so,
MWRD related, he can figure out where to look for it.
and then,
Mm-hmm.
and then I'll have to, because he made us a suggestion, but I'm surprised that and
He obviously didn't have the answer for us. But
I was surprised that he didn't know that there wasn't an answer to it. I don't think there's an answer to it. Otherwise, I would have I would have known where it was. So, but anyway, we could try to find out the best thing that we can and go from there. I mean, we have,
again, remembering what Jeff Edstrom from Illinois EPA said at the last meeting, he said, he even said you may not want to include Lake Calumet, but just define the area.
yeah,
Now, was it Lindsay from Illinois DEM said they'd prefer a Huck 12, but that's a whole nother ball game, and then going all along to the east along the Lake Michigan coast. But I think like you said, we define something that is there's basis in some reality with our best, and there's probably some best professional judgment in there with the variation of Lake Michigan levels, groundwater, etc.
So is that, Phil, is that something you think you can put, like, do you think that we need like 2 or 3 different suggestions? Like photo, or I don't know, a diagram of there's this option, and there's this option. And all these options are based upon professional decision making, what you think it should look like, so that we can all then make a decision.
I mean, I would review these reports. I haven't read these. I've seen sections of them, but I haven't sat down and really looked at them, to be honest. I would go see what's in these various water surveys and see if we believe what they say and if they sound reasonable to what we want to do. And then we have to figure out what to do with sewer systems and all the other changes that have probably taken place over time, over the last couple decades. And then we can have a much better or more informed conversation about this. Because then we're going to go, okay, so we do. I think we're still struggling with figuring out how much information's out there and what do we fully really need. That's where we are right now. And we know some things, but I don't think we know enough about what's out there. And if the information is not out there, then we got to figure out how to go get it. But by having a better idea of what's out there, we have a more refined way or an ideas of what we do need and then who we should really talk to about it. Who knows? Maybe the Indiana side is well defined. We might look at this and go, oh, okay, this is over here and this, and Hammond sewer system split down a line. So, okay, well, there's our line. Or now the trick with the groundwater is it's all the same. We're not going to get a good answer there, combined with the fact that there's probably multiple levels of groundwater. I mean, different layers. You can have groundwater at 10 feet, you can have it at 50 feet, so on and so forth, different aquifers. And that's always going to be a mess. Calumet River is deep enough to be a barrier. I don't know how deep it is, but it's deep enough for, freighters or whatever. So that it's got to go down 30 feet or so, I'm guessing, at least in the thawweg, right in the middle, which means any surface groundwater, that's going to be a barrier right there. So that we're not going to go beyond the Calumet River. We're not going to go beyond the other rivers probably either. That means we're going to have to draw a line. There's got to be a line somewhere between the Calumet River and Wolf Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere. And I don't know where that is. I don't have a sense. I don't know that neighborhood well enough. Then on the other side, once again, do we include Lake George or not? Another option is to look at historical maps and see where the old wetlands were. And then use that to inform some of this. For, Lake George and Wolf Lake were more or less continuous.
Hmm.
And along with Hyde Lake and Deer Lake, which are gone.
Yeah.
And then we can kind of use that to draw boundaries as well. Where were the old wetland boundaries? And then see what's there now. We could come up with some surface things like Mike was saying, Calumet Avenue was the high ground. Now the catch is if there's culverts through there, then it's not a barrier. Water will pour right through there. And I don't know that well enough to know off the top of my head, except that when you're driving down it, there's wetlands on both sides. So
Which road is that?
It's Highway 41 in, through Hammond, Calumet Avenue.
Okay.
I mean, that could be one right there. And what's another one? Independence. That's farther away, but I mean, that's whatever major north-south roads are possibilities. But if they have culverts underneath them, then they're not
Right.
buried. So,
And you just follow the storm sewers.
yeah. And you can usually follow where these culverts and drainage ditches run. If you go to Google Maps and look at satellite view, you can usually track a lot of this. It's actually harder in wooded situations because then the trees cover it all up. But in urban, we cut down all the trees so then we can see the ditches better, which is not why we cut down the trees, but it's usually what happens. So I mean, the next step, I think we should look at these reports, whoever has links to them. That's what I would suggest doing and figure out where our boundaries are. That will also inform what neighborhoods, at least on the Chicago side, we want to interact with. I mean, they're all in the city of Chicago, but what neighborhoods specifically should we talk to? I don't know how many wards are over there. I don't know those boundaries.
10th Ward's pretty big.
10th Ward, yeah, it
Could include just
covers
about
every- everything on the Illinois side.
Yeah.
Yeah, more than. But, so I think we're safe on that.
Are there any other municipalities on the Indiana sides besides Hammond that might be within our area of interest?
No, I can't
No.
think of it. I think, yeah. So we're just talking about Chicago and Hammond. And we're really just talking about the 10th Ward and Hammond. Yeah, Hammond goes.
That's a boundary right there, isn't it? The 10th Ward. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah, so we're. The other thing is, I'm going to do, I'll go out and just get a lot of maps and send them to everybody. And then people can, from some of those maps, they can kind of figure out where to go. I've got some early maps of Lake Berry and what's the other lake on the Illinois side? That's gone. Anyway, of the 4 lakes, there's only 2 left. And
Dan
so,
Spencer shared a map of Eggers that showed what it looked like before the slag was dumped at 118th Street. So it showed the configuration of the marshes leading down
oh yeah,
to Wolf Lake. It's a really great shot.
so,
It's actually a photo taken from some early plane.
yeah, 1938.
Yeah, I think it was from the 30s.
1938, and there's one that just has Powderhorn. It's really from that aerial is really stands out.
Mhm, mhm.
And so
Can these somehow be put on the Owly website or links to them or something, some depository where we can all
well,
go to?
whatever I can get, I'll just email out to everybody. But
Who manages the website?
Um, you mean our website or?
Yeah, AWLI, right?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, we have a person that does that. I'll just have to talk with him, but I'll have to track down the resources first.
But I'm just wondering, does it make sense, like to have a watershed planning resource page?
Yeah, exactly, exactly.
Okay. Okay. Let me work on it and then I'll let you know the progress.
That would probably be good in case there's people that join at any point, and then,
Yeah, I probably have some already on my computer. I just have to, I've been working with two computers, one at home and one at the office, and then neither one is really set up in advance to do this. So I'll figure out a way. And
I think it's an excellent idea to have them on Ollie's website. For one thing, and we'll get into this when there is time in this afternoon's meeting, but we need to keep trying to pull the city of Hammond into these conversations. But at least, if nothing else, we can say to them, well, whether you can make it a priority to join our discussions or not, everything relevant, that's been officially done, defining the boundaries of the watershed, is right on our website. You or anyone else from the general public can go there to consult those documents.
okay. Number two, I'll try to set it up and then refer it to folks. It may take a couple of weeks to do that. The other thing is, if we don't have that, since we don't have it plotted out right now, the other thing is to talk about fundraising, because we have to, once we get this information, to whom do we show it? And how much is it going to cost?
Right, because if we, get something reasonable and like Phil, you're saying, then to get it better defined, be able to have some shape files kind of things that then we can utilize, might then, bringing in a geological survey or water survey to
Right.
tidy things up, so to speak. Fundraising.
Fundraising. Is that something we can
Bake
talk?
sales won't do it.
No.
I know that's the trouble. My fundraising expertise kind of is limited to bake sales.
Let's see.
course, you've got-
Sometimes, yeah, to get creative sometimes. Most grants do require a match.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'm wondering if foundation, I am less, or not really very familiar at all with foundation grants. I don't know if they require match, but if then you have to find the right kind of foundation grant that would be willing to support, this type of investigation.
Well, Michael, you've got experience with getting some of those.
Yes. But like for example, the grant we had in 2007, I think it was 10% that we had to come up with, and that we could do, we did. But mostly it would just be work that we were doing, and I think we had a 10%.
Like just it was match, like
matching.
value of volunteer time kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah. And So, and I haven't even begun to think about funding for this project. Yeah, uh, I wanted Lindsay to be here, but I can email her and but she was talking about yeah, she didn't mention funding, did she?
Well, we talked about it in terms of the 319 grants, when that requires a 40% match. And she mentioned 205J, which is a planning grant, but she didn't mention, I don't know on the state side if there's a match for that.
Okay.
And is that something that, like a NERC, who is eligible for the 205J? Is that just a NERC type organization, or can it be like a watershed, 501c3 type group that this is? I don't know.
I can certainly just email her that and ask her. And Jeff, did he talk about that last time?
Yes. So on the Illinois side, who is like the 604B, which that part of the Clean Water Act is used for watershed management planning, so it can be used for this kind of work. Only certain entities are eligible, such as CMAP, and soil and water districts. Now, whether the city of Chicago is eligible, I'm not sure. You have to have certain, in your charter or mission, you have to like do water quality management planning, do water quality planning per se, specifically, actually. So I think I looked at whether MWRD ever applied for 604, but I don't think they have. But they are also a possibility to be eligible. And then again, if you can get a 604 grant, there's no match, which is nice. Very nice.
Oh.
And then what I don't know, like again, on the Indiana side, sounds like they keep their 604 funds, I think, internally, but they use 205J, different section of Clean Water Act for planning. And sounds like they give grants there. But again, whether there's a match or not, hopefully Lindsay can easily let us know that.
Okay.
The problem is then, like what Jeff did say, Illinois EPA, the funds stop at the border. That's part of the problem. So you kind of have to have them both at the same time if you have them from both states. It'd be nice to get something like direct from US EPA, so you could work across the border at the same time. I'm actually meeting with US EPA folks next week to talk about something else, but I will bring up this question and maybe they can give me a name of somebody to talk to about that.
Okay. Yeah, it's a federal organization. That's the easy way out.
And anything wrong with that?
Oh, it's great.
Definitely not.
Well, it's even surprising because in 2007, that was just going to be all Indiana funding. And that was applied for the watershed. So, but I don't think that happens. That's available anymore. Is this bi-monthly thing working? Or should we be meeting more often?
Well, it depends, Michael, on whether you can talk to Richard Lanyon and the other people you mentioned before the next meeting.
I think monthly meetings are a good idea if we can all manage it.
Yeah, and at least we'll have some progress, if not the end.
So is it always going to be the very last Wednesday afternoon of the month? Is that?
I think the last Wednesday in June is, I think we have a meeting on that date, Bill, don't we?
Another meeting?
Yeah, for the November meeting, advisory committee meeting. I think that,
Oh,
Yes,
okay.
that is correct.
Oh, okay.
so, but we can do the 4th or the um, next to the last Wednesday in June.
Okay, let me see. Oh, yes, I see Wednesday, the 26th, that meeting to plan the November gathering. So previous Wednesday, then that would be June 19th, Juneteenth. Does that
Well,
work?
yeah, I'll have to figure out how much progress I can make in that time, but
Yeah, I would be unable to meet on that day.
Oh, okay.
okay. Well,
Yeah, Michael, it sounds like you might be cutting yourself short.
I
Doing-
think
Yeah, maybe for this next one, just,
let's wait. Yeah, we're not
Yeah,
there
shoot.
yet. We got,
Um,
there's any question mark.
So
So-
does that mean our next one will be in July?
Yes,
Okay, and I just want to double check the date on that because
the 30,
I,
the 31st of July.
July 31st.
Fine by me.
Okay. Well, that'll give the city of Hammond plenty of time to think about it, at least.
Okay.
and then as I think, some of these grant cycles, then we can maybe work backwards from some of them, which again, many are in the spring. Say we can come up with some reasonable, we come up with some idea of the watershed and we want to fine tune it. And we apply for some grant. Again, whether we can,
Yeah, well,
all kind of depends on those grant cycles. It depends on, how much match, if any, is needed. I think. Yeah, I also kind of wondering what kind of mapping resources NERC may have. So, but I like, Phil's idea. Let's see what we can find and dig up, both on studies that have been done of the drainage area. You wonder if Hammond has their storm sewers, GIS. Do they have web maps up?
That's a good question.
Some communities share this information and some do not.
And what's the abbreviation for those maps again, Holly?
Well, sometimes they'll have a web. Yes. See, I'm just thinking Kane County over here in Illinois, you can go to their web, their GIS viewer online, and you can see they have all the drainage up on their website.
I'll take a look. I'm betting it's not there from what I've seen of the City of Hammond's website, but I'll take a look.
We could go to
Or-
Lake County's surveyor.
I was going to say maybe Lake
Oh,
County
that's
may
true.
have drainage information, at least for unincorporated. I don't know how much is unincorporated versus incorporated.
I think he would have a good map of the entire
Mhm.
county.
Yeah, so that would be Bill Emerson in charge of that information.
Yeah, Bill. And, but I can email him and see. I'll just tell him the problem we're having and if he can come up with a solution to it. But I don't think we're going to get Bill to come to these meetings. He didn't do the first two, so not likely he's going.
It would be so good if he would participate,
know,
but at least you can contact him.
I could ask him directly to attend the next one,
Uh-huh.
and
That
that's
would be really good because, you know, I know he's in county government, which we need. He might also help us in communicating with the city of Hammond, which is an ongoing
okay.
problem. I
Which
wanted
is-
to ask too, so I recently contacted a member of the Hammond Common Council that I've corresponded with before. She seems very, very nice. And I asked her, you know, how do I get an invitation to the council that will definitely be considered at one of the council meetings, inviting them to participate in these discussions. I've written before and I didn't get any responses at all. So she said that what I need to do is write a letter of invitation and hand deliver copies of it to City Hall, put one in each council person's mailbox, and then and only then they will read it aloud at their next meeting during their communications section. Now, having watched their meetings, I'm not terribly optimistic about what, if anything, that might accomplish, because this is the part of the meeting where people make announcements and say, hey, you know, we're going to have a block party in my district on such and such a day and everybody's welcome. But it's kind of where I have to start, I think. And I could also, well, I don't want to do this too far in advance of July 31st, because then they'll all just forget about it. But I was thinking if I could hit them, you know, a couple of weeks before our end of July meeting, and then also show up at that meeting. You know, I could try pushing it a little more during the public expression period. Any thoughts about that?
Sounds good to me. You know more about how,
I'll
people
give it
who
the
show
old-
up,
Yeah.
gotta show up, right? Gotta
Right.
be seen.
Okay, well, I'll give it the old school try.
Yeah.
It would be ideal if we had the same Zoom link for all of these meetings, Michael, the one we used today. Can that be reused for these meetings?
I don't think so.
No. Okay.
And because one thing we post these, we're being recorded, and
Right.
so that recording with that Zoom link
Mhm.
will be used for that. So I
Got it. Okay.
think you have to have a different link every.
Okay. Well, I can at least, you know, I can make the push, and then every time we're going to have a meeting, I can send a reminder. And if it's all right, Michael, I'll put your email in it. Come to think of it, we could go after them with email reminders from us. Maybe that's better still. Don't make them do any unnecessary work. Okay, well, I will get after them.
Okay.
Bye, Maya. Take care.
All right. Anything else? I think that's enough work for me to do for the next 2 months. But if I come up with anything, I can share some of the information at the time and just keep everybody up to date during this 2-month period.
Yeah, sharing the information before the meeting probably will help the discussion.
Yeah, okay, I'll do that. I swear. Okay.
I
Well,
do have something I do have to ask, because
okay.
I was working on trying to find a city of Chicago rep, but I need a little clarification. I think you wanted someone, maybe there's two roles, somebody who might serve on the AWLI board or just somebody who's a representative for this planning process.
I think just a representative for the planning process.
Okay, and what kind of, I don't know, skills are we looking for? We're looking for someone with knowledge, what do we want them to bring to the table, I guess?
Um, we want them to,
Like geographic representation, subject matter? Do you want connection to other agencies or regulators?
All of the above.
Yeah, all of the above.
Okay.
I
Like the
think
last-
connections are especially important right now.
yeah, I think that's the last one you mentioned. I think, and, I think that's important. Because if that person isn't the right one, at least that person knows someone else to contact. So,
Somebody, I imagine, who's somewhat also, when you talk about geography, just familiar with the area.
right. Okay,
Okay.
anything else? Okay, I gotta go get to work.
Okay, very good.
Thank you very
Thanks,
much.
everybody.
Thanks.
Sure.
Thanks all.
Thanks, everyone. Good to see everyone.